Hello guys, it's me Ashwath and welcome back to On the Same Wavelength, where we'll be discussing the past week in general news. Now, if you're not familiar with the format of general news, because I recently just shifted away from doing just politics and just science to general news and science, if you're not sure how the formatting, that is, works for general news, I'll explain it right now. If you would like to skip over this part of the video and get to the main content, there is going to be a little annotation that pops up right now. Please remember to add that in, other me, or this is going to look really awkward. Now, basically how general news will work is I will select 3 articles, or 3 interesting events that have happened in world news in the past week or so. Mostly within the past week or 2 weeks will be the farthest back I'll ever go in one of these. And this will give you a sort of general sample as to how the world is doing, what we've been focusing on recently, and what's new. Now, while I do this, at the same time, you must acknowledge I'm only doing 3 articles or 3 events, so it might be not the greatest sample, and be sure to pursue more information about any of the articles I'm telling you if you're interested, and be sure to keep yourself updated. These will be going out once a week in the place of where politics was going on. If you'd like to check out my other On the Same Wavelengths for science and politics, general news, whatever, you can check out the playlist I have on my channel. And if you just want to go and see science, or you just want general news, be sure to leave me feedback in the comments so that I know what I'm doing. Now let's get on with the news, and this is where you guys arrive if you just skipped. Now, our first article is somewhat, I don't really like to bring this one up, because it's about Ebola, and I feel like when I talk more and more about Ebola, I'm just contributing to the scare that's going on in the world about Ebola right now, because everyone's so worried about the situation. And to be honest, okay, ignoring the rest of the world here, let's just talk about America for just a moment. I don't want to sound like super American or anything like that. Let's just focus on America's situation right now, because I'm pretty sure the majority of my viewers live in America anyways. Ebola is not something we should be super worried about in the case of an Ebola outbreak in America. That's just a thing that everyone's worried about. There's like Fox News, CNN, everyone's like, oh my god, there's gonna be a crazy outbreak. Don't worry about that, because there's only been one person who has died in the United States due to Ebola, and that's very unfortunate, and we must not just brush that aside like it's something really trivial, but that's one death, and I believe it's 4 or 5, total cases, all of which have been completely contained. In fact, you've been hearing less and less about Ebola in America in recent news, and that's because it wasn't ever as huge of a deal as we thought it was. So don't overreact to the situation, and don't focus on one thing in news, because that's a bad thing to do. Actually, you know what? If you skip to the video, you're gonna arrive here because you missed my rant on Ebola, but you can go back to that if you want. Anyways, on the subject of Ebola, recently several health workers, mainly nurses, have been holding protests and strikes. This has been going on for the past 2 days. These are nurses who work mainly with Doctors Without Borders, a program that allows doctors and nurses to travel throughout countries to treat ongoing epidemics and just major problems in countries where the health system might not be as good, or they don't have the medicine and technology to support so many people. Now, there have been over, I believe, 100,000 nurses who have been working with Doctors Without Borders who are now hosting strikes because they feel like their equipment is not proper, they are not being taken proper care of to treat Ebola, and when they come back to communities in the US, they feel like they're being ostracized because there is a fear that they might be infected even if they show no symptoms or have no signs of the disease. This is highly unfortunate because this is what the whole Ebola fear has come to. There's just this mob mentality where one idea just sparks and people cling on something that they can be worried about, even if it's something that you shouldn't be worried about. These nurses have been holding protests, as I said, for the past 2 days, although it's not sure if the number has dwindled over the 2 days. So that's just our little bit about Ebola. I'll try and talk less and less about it as we go on, because hopefully it becomes less and less of a problem, and you guys should be focusing on other news. Our second article is about dyslexia. Now, dyslexia is a condition that affects about 5 to 10% of Americans. I believe throughout the whole world it's approximately, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 15% of everyone in the world has dyslexia, which, no, wait, no, not 15%. It's like 10%. Let's go with 10%. I believe 10% of the world, maybe even less, of the world has dyslexia. Dyslexia is a condition where words on paper, just any words written down, appear to be jumbled up, the letters move around. It's hard to describe as someone who has never experienced what it may look like, but it just causes severe trouble with reading because all these letters are flipped, they just look weird, you just can't distinguish what the word is. And in the Netherlands, a graphic designer named Christian Bauer has designed a font called Dyslexie, that's spelled Dyslexie. And this is a downloadable font. There'll be a link to it either in the description or in a comment that I post, so you can check out the font if you want. Other designers have created various variations on this. All of these can be downloaded for free, which is cool. So if you have dyslexia, this is a very useful resource. Now, he believes that this font he's created, which has very distinct letters that allow them to be distinguished that was very redundant, but the letters are able to be distinguished very easily, and so far he's gotten very positive reviews among the dyslexic community on how this has been able to help so much. In fact, he said that a woman who was 68 felt like her eyes were open for the first time. And something like this is an amazing medical advancement, because dyslexia is a territory that we haven't strayed too much into, and we're suddenly making this random spurt of progress that seems like something it almost seems so simple to just come up with a way to help these people, but we hadn't seen it until now. So I think this is a very admirable thing that has been done. Excuse me, sorry. And our final article of the week, remember, 3 articles only, is concerning a space probe. This probe, I know this is a bit more sciencey, but bear with me, is called Philae, that's spelled Philae. The intention, or the purpose of this probe, was to land on a comet so that we could get better understanding about how comets work. Now, it's believed comets hold a certain importance in our Earth because it's believed that comets could be the origin of water on Earth, they could be the origin of potentially life on Earth due to, like, them carrying crystallized bacteria, and we don't know, like, anything about comets. All we know is they're, like, kind of like rocks or chunks of snow that just float through the sky through space really, really quickly, and they burn up in our atmosphere, and that's all we really know. Well, they don't usually enter our atmosphere, but we don't know anything about them. You've probably, like, just heard of Halley's Comet, and that's it. But we've recently landed this probe. Now, Philae was intended to smoothly touch down on a comet. This is a really, really, really hard operation to maneuver, because when you have something in space, any signals that you send need to travel to the probe and back to send data of where the probe is. So you almost have to be acting before you know something occurs. This is very relevant. It came up a lot when we were landing the Curiosity and any of the other Mars rovers, because there's a 7-minute delay between Mars and Earth due for the time it takes the signal to travel back and forth. So in cases like this, it's a very, very hard operation to maneuver something so delicate onto something so fast moving, but we managed to do it. There was a bit of a bump, like an actual bump. The probe hit the comet, it came off for just a bit, we got some data, and it landed back on the comet. The manager of the project, Philae, in fact, said, "So maybe we didn't land once, but we landed twice," which I think is a very funny quote. It's a very humorous take on what could have been a potentially problematic situation. Actually, also a bit more information about Philae. It's a probe that was originally on board the mothership Rosetta. It's sort of like the hands of the Rosetta spacecraft, because a spacecraft cannot examine a comet to the same extent that a probe on the surface can. In fact, a spacecraft can't really examine a comet at all, because there's like no connection. So that's our most recent bit of news, and hopefully we'll be getting a lot more important data back from Philae that helps us better understand how we came onto Earth and how our Earth developed. Anyways, that's our week in general news. Thank you so much for dropping by. And just another thing about general news, we're not going to be having a word of the week or a song of the week in general news. That doesn't make sense to me, because then we have 2 words of the week and 2 songs of the week, and that's just confusing, and honestly, it's kind of just a bit more stuff for me to do. So that's going to be our general news for the week. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to leave a like. Be sure to share this with your friends if you think they're uneducated, or if you just think they want to learn some more stuff and they're not learning enough. Be sure to check out my other videos if you like this one, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of whatever that may be. Don't forget to live long and peace out. Bye!